Welcome to Freedom and Glory, Tales of American Spirit, where every flag tells a story, and so does every person who raises one. Join Liz Morris and Bill LuMaye for conversations with people making a difference in their communities, reminding us that even the smallest actions can spark lasting change.
Today, we're joined by Kelly Hyke, owner of Hyke Funeral Home in Redfield, South Dakota. Kelly spent 18 years in law enforcement before answering a second calling, mortuary science. And he and his wife, Bonnie, bought their funeral home in 2015. And almost immediately, they started flying flags, and not for marketing purposes, just as a way of saying thank you. And 10 years later, that tradition has grown into something the whole community notices. And Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Tales of American Spirit.
It's an honor for me to be asked to come and visit with you and to share my story and honor your company that provides American flags for so many companies and people around this United States.
Well, thanks for saying that, Kelly. And the honor's all mine. Seriously, I mean, to your career, 18 years in law enforcement, and then, to turn around and go back to school for mortuary science. I mean, I just think that story is incredible. It's wild. It's inspiring. What happened inside you to make you say, this is what I'm supposed to do?
It was kind of a different situation. When I was in high school, I actually worked at our local funeral home where I grew up at for 2 years. Back then, it was before cell phones, before pagers. So somebody was always required to be at the funeral home to answer that phone when it rang, to take the death call or, answer any of the questions. And the owner of the funeral home back then, obviously him and his wife needed some time away. And he said, Kelly, would you just be willing to come to the funeral home and sit and answer the phone so my wife and I can go out and have supper or go to a movie or, do anything like that. So I did that for 2 years and got into also going with him to do some removals. And, at the time, I really thought that the funeral business was a business that I'd really like and wanted to go into. At the same time, I had some great friends that I knew that were in law enforcement, and they were like, Kelly, why don't you come and do a ride along with us on the police department just to see what that is like? So I did one ride along and did a second ride along, and I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. The different day-to-day thing and all the lights and sirens and the excitement drew me to law enforcement. So I forgot about funeral business. Went to college, got my degree in criminal justice, went to the North Dakota Law Enforcement Training Academy, and came back and worked in law enforcement for 18 years. And, I truly enjoyed the aspect of being a policeman, being there to help people in one of the most difficult times of their life. And after 18 years, getting married, having a few kids, I just felt that I wanted something that wasn't as dangerous, and it was still, helping people that were in the time of need. And I had always had that drive to go back to the funeral business. Obviously, in the funeral business, when we go to the cemetery, or when funeral homes go to the cemetery, they ask for law enforcement to lead them through the busy intersection. So I got to know the funeral director where I was working as a policeman. And he was like, Kelly, I'm looking for a funeral director. I know that you had said that you'd worked in the funeral home, and I always find it interesting. Have you ever thought about going back to school? Well, I thought about it, and I said, yes, but it's a big adventure to get out of a career that you've been in for 18 years. When you have two small kids, at the time I had a daughter that was 22 months old, and I had a son that we just had that was 6 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, boy, I don't know if I could do this. And what is my wife going to say if I decide to get out of law enforcement and pursue a whole other career? after visiting with my beautiful wife, Bonnie, she said, if you want to do it, I think that the time is now to do it. And we're both looking at the safety factors. I wanted to be here to watch my kids grow. And you always have a higher risk in law enforcement of something happening to you. And so I weighed out the aspects of my career versus being here for my family and said, this is the time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you said, I think, you've had 2 careers now where people kind of call on you on one of the worst days of their lives, basically. What do you think? Do you think there's a certain kind of person that's drawn to that? I mean, I know you mentioned the excitement of law enforcement, but, what do you see in yourself that kind of fits in both of those careers?
I think in both careers, you have to be a person that cares about people. Sometimes people think of law enforcement as, the person that is there to tell you that you've done something wrong and to correct you. But on the other side of it is law enforcement is there also to help. There's no better feeling than helping a family. You have a lost child or something like that, or the family has been wronged by somebody, and you work and work and work and get to a conclusion of it where it's good for the victim and good for the perpetrator. That makes you feel really good. The same aspect comes with people that are in the funeral home. In the funeral business, if you're a funeral director or, just somebody that's working a visitation, people put their trust in you that you're going to take care of them at the worst time of their life. Nobody can say that there's anything worse than losing a family member. Even somebody that has, lived a good long life and into their 90s, it's still tough when the time comes and they finally pass away, because that is someone that they're never going to be able to see again. They're never going to be able to hold their hand, never hear their voice. And that makes it very difficult. And I just think that people that are in the funeral home, in the funeral business, or in law enforcement, we have to be very good listeners and lots of compassion to the people that are putting their trust in us.
Well, Kelly, how do you cope with all of that? As a law enforcement officer, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things you'd rather not have seen. And of course, you just kind of detailed what it's like to lose a family member and dealing with those who are grieving. I mean, you take some of that on yourself, I assume. So how do you mentally deal with it?
The one thing I do is I go home, I have a 60-pound yellow lab pit bull mix. And I go home and the dog just seems to know if I've had a really tough day at work. Sit down in the chair, the dog will jump up on my lap and just cuddle with me. And I just sometimes need that time just to recharge my batteries because it is very difficult. And, I've worked in both aspects of the funeral business where when I was going to school, mortuary school in Chicago, I worked in a funeral home that did about 2,500 death calls or funerals in a year. And the people there just became, you were, call number 5 today. So you really didn't have that close bond that you have here. With me living in a town of about 2,000 people, I know pretty much everybody in town. So when I get a death call, I know usually the person that passed away, I know their family members, and there's a closeness or a bondness there. And that makes it very difficult because there is a relationship there. They're not a number. They are a friend that you've known. And I've been here in Redfield now for 20 years. It'll be 20 years in June. And so I was just thinking to myself about all the people that I've watched that used to come into visitations that were very, very healthy and would stand and talk to them. Now some of those people are the people that I'm burying. And they're good friends, and it's tough, but the nice side of that is to give that family the care, the support that they need at the most difficult time. And to have a family come back and say, Kelly, you made it so easy for us because you know us. You knew our dad, you knew our mom or our brother, our sister. And that brought us comfort. And I think that's what it's about, is to bring comfort to the people that we have had the honor of serving.
Well, I do want to ask because, you got to know Liz, of course, and their company. You bought a mortuary and you put a flagpole in. So I know there's a story behind all of that. And maybe you'd like to share that with us. I mean, what made you feel that was such an important thing to do?
When my wife and I made the decision to buy the mortuary, or the funeral home, we were thinking about ways to give back to the people that we served. And, one of the large groups of people that we serve is our veterans. And, I've always held a special place in my heart for our veterans, because our veterans had went and served selfishly to give us, the American people, the freedoms that we have today. And without them, we wouldn't have that freedom. And I wanted to be able to give back to them and say, thank you for your service. Thank you for doing what you did to make my life better. And one of the ways of doing it, I felt, was to fly the flag, to honor their service. The other thing, people always ask, well, geez, Kelly, did you ever serve in the military? Because we always see that every one of your suits, every one of your sports coats, you're always wearing an American flag. And, I never had the ability to serve in the military because of a medical condition. My wife and I talked about a way to give back to our veterans. And they are a large percentage of the people that we serve. So by putting up a flag and saying, thank you for doing what you did so I can have the freedom to do what we do in in America, I just felt was a great way to show that respect to them.
I mean, walk us through, when a veteran passes and you're putting up their branch flag, walk us through what that looks like from, when you put the flag up to when the family arrives.
Well, there's a couple different things that I do to honor our veterans. One of the things is when I go to the hospital, the nursing home, or the place of death, usually, like I said, around here, knowing the people, I know if they've served. And if not, when I'm going through the list of things that the family needs to bring to the funeral home, one of the questions is, is your loved one a veteran? And if so, what branches of service did they serve in? And the reason I ask that is just for the aspect that, I want to be able to fly the flag for them, but I also want to be able to help them know that they need to bring in their discharge papers so they can get all of the military benefits that they're entitled to, the American flag, the TAPS, the firing squad, the headstone. And if they tell me, yes, that their loved one is a veteran, when I do the removal at the hospital or the place of death, our cot, on one side of our cot, the cover that goes over it is a nice blue quilt. And on the other side of our cot is an American flag. So when I move the person that has passed away, the deceased, to our cot, and I'm taking them out of the place of death to bring them to the funeral home, if they're a veteran, I put a flag over top of their the cot that they're being wheeled out on, just out of respect. When I get back to the funeral home, and once we can confirm that they are a veteran and that they were honorably discharged, one of the first things we do is we go out and we raise the American flag with the flag of their branch of service directly underneath of it. And then that flies out in front of our funeral home from the date of their death until after their committal, either at the cemetery or in a niche, or they've been cremated and there's no further services. And I always let the family know at that time that we're doing this in honor of them, so that they know. On our Facebook page, we put a nice little picture of the flag the American flag and the branch flag up, and we say, we're flying this flag in honor of whoever the deceased was and thank them for their service to our country.
I was going to say, I have gone through that personally with someone in my family. And the symbolism of the flag and what it means is almost overpowering. I don't know how to put it into words. I don't know if you get that sense as well. And for those who are attending those funerals and they see this display of patriotism and respect, kind of feedback are you getting?
You know, I've had nothing but positive feedback from family members. I've had families when the first thing when they pull into the parking lot and they get out of their vehicle and they look up and they see the American flag and the flag of the branch of the service flying out front, taking pictures of it, and coming in and saying, we greatly appreciate that you're honoring our loved one by doing this. And get tears in their eyes and come in and give me a big hug and just say thank you. And that's what it's about, honoring these people and showing respect to them.
Do you have a specific story that you'd be willing to share?
I will. And it goes back to probably one of the very first times that I had started flying the American flag out front. People started talking about that. Geez, it's nice to see a flag out front. But the very first time that I took down the state flag and I put up a flag with a service emblem on it for the branch of the service, and the family come in, they were just totally surprised that I did that. They'd never seen that before. And they broke down and they started crying, that someone would think that much of the service that their loved one provided to do something like that. I got a nice letter from them that thanked me for doing that and saying that it was so nice to know that someone was taking care of their loved one that was truly respectful of the service that they had. And I hold that dear to my heart because I just think that it says a lot. And, even to this day, we're looking at 10 years that we've been doing this now. It's amazing how often when we put up a flag with a veteran's flag underneath of it, how many people are calling up and saying, who passed away? And then we tell them, it's like, we knew that they were a veteran. We knew that they served. We just had no idea which branch of the service they were in. So I think it opens up a dialogue where the family can share stories of their loved one, about what they did, what branch of the service they served in, where they served at. And I think talking about their loved one with other people is a form of healing for them. So I think it's a great avenue to open up that conversation.
It is one of those things where when you see a funeral like that, you talked about the taps and the flag and that. In general, the general public will stop and pause with the family publicly to display, their affection. And I think you're right. I mean, it goes a long way for the family's healing. But I understand you've also kind of expanded on this. It's beyond your efforts now. What's going on?
Well, I had such positive feedback from flying just the branches of the United States military. And then some people are saying, well, what about other people? They've served the country in different ways, serving their community. And, coming from law enforcement, I know what a demand that is. And so I thought, they're absolutely right. Let's get a flag that can honor our law enforcement, a flag that can honor our firemen, honor our EMS. Let's take and do flags for them. And I looked and, sure enough, at the time before you guys changed to the new company name, Carrot Top, I kept getting the catalogs and it's like, I've had really good luck getting flags from you guys. Let's see if they have these type of flags. So I looked in there, sure enough, here is pages with these flags. It's like, let's buy those flags and to fly those flags to honor those people that not only serve the American population, but our communities by law enforcement, EMS, fire departments. So I started flying those too, and they have just as much respect, and people truly love seeing those.
A school, a fire station, a business that's been on Main Street for 40 years. When a community wants to be seen, a flag can say it. We make custom flags and banners, American-made, built to last. If you've got something worth flying, let's talk. freedomandglory.com/custom.
Yeah. And Kelly, when you and I talked last year, I was really touched when you told me that you also added the organ donor flag. I know when my mom passed away, she donated her organs to science. And I thought that was, really thoughtful. I think that was an example of what you're talking about,
Right,
where,
exactly.
it just feels very personal. I don't know. Do you want to talk about how that flag got added? And honestly, will you explain what that flag looks like? I don't know that a lot of people are aware that has a flag.
I will do that. After flying the service branches and the community branches for our firemen, I was talking with one of our organ donor companies. They had come in and they were like, they saw the flags and they were like, well, have you ever thought about flying the donor flag? And I was like, no, I've never seen a donor flag. And they're like, well, we're going to get you a donor flag because we send them out to the families of anybody that's a donor so they can fly them at home. We're going to get one or two for you so you can fly them at the funeral home. And so I have here, this is what the emblem on the flag is. And the flag is just a pure white flag with this in the center of it. And so after the company had given me that, I've been flying ever since, just to say thank you to those people because they also are providing a service. They're donating their organs, their tissues, which is in turn helping thousands of people. Everything from, skin to fire victims to corneas for, the elderly or people that are having trouble with their visions, to regular heart, lungs, and stuff like that, saving lives. And so I think it was very important and a very good fit to add that flag into the mix of the other flags that we fly.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think you could probably come up with a flag, for anyone passed away, just kind of showing what they brought to this world. So that's really cool. And I know you were looking to kind of expand the tradition even inside the funeral home with flags. How's that going? I think that just happened maybe last year.
It did. I think it was in July of last year. I was thinking, why just fly it out in front of the funeral home? Let's bring a flag into our chapel. So I had ordered the American flag and also the state flag on the 8-foot poles from your company. I got those, and now those flags, both the American flag and the state flag, set in the front of our chapel and are there for not only for our veterans, but for everybody, just to honor the country that we live in and the state that we live in. So they set right up front of our chapel, one on each side of the casket. So then they've been there, and people have been very outspoken about that in a good aspect. It's like, this is a really nice touch. And so I've been very happy with the response I've got from that.
Did you ever think it was going to be that powerful of a statement when you initially decided to go forward with this?
I didn't. I never ever thought that putting a flagpole out front or moving and getting to the point of putting flags in the actual chapel itself would ever be this big of a statement or this big of an issue to touch so many lives. I would say that any funeral home or any business that is not flying the flag is really missing a great opportunity to show what this country means to them, and to say thank you for so many people that made this country what it is.
I couldn't agree more with that. I hope everybody does that. Although, there are times in this country, sometimes it's not very popular. So in a way, you were, in a sense, brave to do some of these things, because you could have easily have gone the other way in this day and age. You know what I'm talking about. And so it was kind of a brave thing you did. I'm so thrilled that the reaction you got was so overwhelmingly positive. It's just amazing, Kelly.
Yeah. Very seldom, I can't say that it's all been positive. Every now and then, you do get the people that come in and they're like, this country has really gone downhill. Why would you want to fly a flag for a country that is so screwed up? And, I guess I don't see that. If you don't like me flying the flag, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But I think that there's way more people that are happy because of what our veterans did and give us the right to fly this flag. Not only did they give us the right to fly the flag, but they also give these people that have hard feelings against it the right to express their feelings. You go to so many countries that you don't get that right to either be pro or against it. So that is what I want to say thank you to our veterans for, because they gave us that opportunity to be able to speak our piece either for it or against it without worrying about being sent to jail or killed or anything like that.
Sounds like it's more for the individual. Anyway, it's for the family and the individual you're honoring.
Absolutely.
You said, Kelly, that your town population is 2,000 people. I mean, do you think this tradition lands differently, because everyone knows each other?
I do think that it has a little bit different landing, as you called it, because, like I said, the funeral home I have is right on the highway, a block off of Main Street, so I get a lot of traffic by here. And, I hear every day that, when I drive by, I look to see, okay, is there something other than the state flag flying? So people notice that. And if it's a real windy day or something happens that the flag isn't flying, people will stop in and say, well, geez, Kelly, I see the flags now. Why isn't the flags flying today? And I just went through that 2 weeks ago. I was saying to myself, Kelly, you need to replace the ropes on the flagpole, because it's getting to be where they're starting to show some wear and tear. And, we had one of those days in South Dakota when the wind blows 50 miles an hour, and I was sitting in my office, and all of a sudden I heard a clunk on the roof, because I have a steel roof on it. And then I see the flags come off the roof and down in front of the window. And I'm like, what's that about? I thought at first that, the flagpole itself, the top pulley or something came off. So I got up and I walked out, and here what had happened is the rope had broke. So here the flags are laying there, and I, got them up, and I was like, okay, now I have a flagpole that's, about 30 feet in the air. How am I going to get this rope back up on there? So, I had to call around, and I talked to a couple people in town, and they pointed me in the direction to one guy, and I called him up and I said, Kurt, this is Kelly at the funeral home. He says, yeah. I said, you know what? My rope on my flagpole broke, so I can't fly the flag. I'm looking for somebody that has a boom truck that can come over to restring the pulley at the top. Is that something I could hire you to do? He says, absolutely. He says, you know what? I'll be down there yet this afternoon. If you get the rope, we'll get that put up today. And that's a positive response, because in a small town that happens. I wonder in a big town, it might be 2 or 3 days before you can find somebody to come to it. But it was just as important to him that this flag is out there, because he said, you know what, you flew the flag for my loved one, and I knew what it meant to me. So I want to have that opportunity for the next family member. So he was down that afternoon and restrung the pulley on the flagpole so I could put the flags right back up.
Yeah, that is cool. I know. I don't know. I just think the story, the symbol of the flag. I know at like where my dad lives, they put out a rose when someone passes away. And it just reminds me of that same thing. I mean, I think part of what you're doing is people don't want to think about death really, but it's kind of trying to just, I don't know, show you that it happens all the time, that kind of bring it into your life so that you notice. I think it's a really important thing you're doing for the community. And that's another example of definitely in a city that's much bigger than 2000, where, I think starting a tradition, people notice, and it's a way for them to show their respect and kind of stop and think about that person for a second.
I've had other funeral directors that have been here to the funeral home and have seen this, and they're like, you know what, I'm going home and I'm going to do this at my funeral home. I think it's catching on, and I think that we're going to see more and more of this, where people are doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, excuse me, hindsight's 2020. What have you learned from all of this? What's your takeaway? It seemed like in a way, it's a small gesture initially, right? The first flag, you put up the pole, and look where you are today. So what have you learned?
I learned that there's a lot of people that really like to have an avenue to share stories about their loved one, and especially their military service, because people are very proud that their loved ones have served in the military. I'm very proud to say that my grandfather and my dad, my brother, and my nephew all served in the military. And, I just love when someone talks about their service. And I love that it's an avenue for people to ask questions about it and to share stories. So I love the aspect that it's that avenue.
Well, when we talked last year, Kelly, I wrote this down. You said something that I wanted to come back to, which was, I don't think people realize the significant impact they make until they do it. What would you say to someone who's, thinking about doing something like this, a community leader or another, thinking that they might want to start a tradition like this?
When I first did it, like I said that, I didn't think it was going to be this big of a deal to the public. I thought it was just going to be a way to say thank you. I didn't realize it was going to touch so many lives, and so many people were going to be talking about it. And it is just ballooned to such a big thing. I'm glad I did it. I wish that it would have been done long before I came here. But, I would do it 100 times over. I would tell anybody that's thinking about, the small investment that it costs to buy a flagpole, to have it erected, to buy the flags, that little bit of money and time that you've spent on it is going to come back to you a million times over in comments and people saying thank you and showing the appreciation that they have that you've done that. So I just think that it is well worth the expense and the feeling that you get for knowing that you've touched people's lives in a way by doing this.
Didn't ask the real boss, though.
Yeah.
His wife. What does his wife think about all of this?
My wife, she's very in favor of it. We do have a little bit of kidding every now and then, because I met my wife when I was in law enforcement. She was also in law enforcement. But the difference was that I was an American citizen working up on the U.S.-Canadian border. My wife was a law enforcement officer, a federal law enforcement officer for customs for Canada. So we run into that thing about,
Story.
We're going to fly the American flag on the 4th of July. Do you mind? Can we fly the Canadian flag on July 1st, which is Canada's day? So we do have that. So she's very much in favor of flying the American flag. But, I do at home, not at the funeral home. We do at home, do fly the Canadian flag on July 1st to honor her citizenship. But she's a U.S. citizen now, but, her past and birthplace and everything like that. So very, very supportive.
Well, what's going to be your next career, Kelly?
My wife told me that 18 years in law enforcement, 25 years now in the funeral business. She says her next career is going to be retirement. So no, she says she doesn't want to change careers anymore. So we're going to stick with this for, another 10 years and, then hopefully retire and, enjoy spending time with family and friends and doing some traveling.
Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was indeed a pleasure. It really was. I'm so glad you did what you did. Excuse me, and I hope others pick up on it, Kelly. I really do. Because I know personally how much it means. And I know it means a lot to so many people. And I'm glad you're doing it. You're making a big difference in people's lives. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you guys for asking me to come share my story. Thank you for, providing the flags that we can fly. We're always looking for good American-made flags that will withstand the elements and fly and look great. And your company does a wonderful job on providing those flags to us so that we can do that.
Well, thanks for saying
it's a
that.
partnership.
Appreciate your business and I appreciate how you've served others. I mean, it's awesome. Good thing.
You'll need a talk show host flag at some point. So
Oh yeah.
get to work on that.
Just Bill Stoltz. Really
Oh, yeah.
repetitive, like a bunch of them on the flag.
I'm looking forward to, and I was going to look in your new catalog to see if you have one, but, with the United States celebrating 250 years this year.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get a flag that I can start flying here at the funeral home for our 250th birthday. So I'm going to look in your catalog today and see if there's one in there. And
there might be a few.
There might be a few. Okay.
There are.
Okay. Thanks so much, Kelly. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, guys.
I know we just talked to Kelly for a while, and I think what stands out to me is something as simple as a flag, how much weight and meaning it can carry. And that brings us to our next segment. So welcome to Flags of Change, and where we explore how powerful symbols born from one individual can kind of blossom into something that's really impactful. And today we're turning our focus to something very interesting, the Earth Day flag. So thank you for joining us, Heather.
Hi, good morning.
So, and I was just commenting on your shirt. I think this whole topic is really exciting for what's going on. And to start with the flag, the Earth Day flag, it feels very different from most flags in that, it's not abstract, it's not symbol, it's an actual image. And what makes this design so powerful?
Yeah. I think it's exciting too. And the very first flag of Earth, or Earth flag, had a 1969 Apollo 10 photo on it. And the version of it that we know today has a 1972 Apollo 17 photo on it that is commonly known as the blue marble. And while there were some earlier images of Earth, the blue marble is one of the most reproduced photos of all time. And the way the light was hitting the Earth, the atmospheric conditions on the planet, the perspective of the continents that we could see, it really made the composition reminiscent of a floating marble. And it was incredibly powerful to have people go out and be able to share back this type of vantage point of the planet through this photograph.
Well, for many people, it was the first time they saw the planet as a whole. It kind of put things into perspective, right, Heather? I mean, it was all of a sudden, things aren't so big. And this little blue marble that we're riding on in space is kind of important. We ought to be thinking about things like water, environment, and all the things that, we recognize Earth Day for.
Aside from being able to see Earth from this new perspective, a lot was happening on Earth at the time. Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962, which really sounded the alarm on the ecological disaster of pesticide use. You've got the Cold War, you've got the Vietnam War happening. And so this image provided a perspective shift. It allowed people to see the fragility of Earth, and it also allowed us to see Earth as a shared planet as opposed to individual nation states.
Oh, Earth Day for me, when I was a kid, I'd go swimming in what was the Fox River, where I come from, and it had PCBs, and it was, you could almost walk on it, but we didn't care. We didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I believe it was a senator from Wisconsin who actually helped create Earth Day. And from that point, just that flag and that recognition, how much progress have we made, Heather?
Oh,
in
sure.
regards to improving our little blue marble?
Yeah. The flag was designed by John McConnell, and at the time he was a peace advocate, he was an environmental activist, and he proposed the first Earth Day at a 1969 UNESCO conference. And from there, U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson picks it up, launches a Taoiseach initiative on environmental reform that leads to the first Earth Day in early 1970. And then later that year, the EPA is founded. So this flag's symbolic imagery allowed people to rally behind it and really move into concrete action addressing some of the challenges of time and shift us on a better course.
Well, I can say this with confidence as someone who sells flags. This is not something that's widely flown, but yet, it's a symbol that it might be the most relatable flag in the world. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think flags are very often used by people to share their values, their identity, their brand, their sense of place. So, maybe your flag, the U.S. flag for Team USA at the Olympics, or maybe you're a North Carolinian trying to represent your county and your preferred style of barbecue, or Liz, maybe you're a Tar Heel trying to represent during March Madness. We don't necessarily identify ourselves as Earthlings that need to fly our Earth colors in competition with other planets like Mars, right? And then on top of that, the Apollo program ended in 1972. And so we stopped getting back these people-made images and perspectives that allowed us to see Earth from that zoomed out distance that really gave us the sense of all about our planet.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to, obviously we have like robots and things that can take that picture, but, there's something to it. A person actually, was there and took that picture. If the Earth Day flag represents this, shared responsibility and shared place, do you think that this symbols like this still have the power to unite people today?
As a matter of fact, as we record, there are 4 astronauts on their way back on an Artemis mission from the far side of the moon. And we are seeing images akin to these Earthrise or blue marble images of the Apollo era all over again for the first time in 50 or 60 years. And sure, we've got some incredible uncrewed technology out there in deep space sending back some photos. But there's nothing quite like the poetry of other humans out there reminding us where our home is in the vastness of space and our connectedness because of that blue marble.
I'm a big space fan. This has been a great week. It really has, but you're right. Having a human take that picture rather than a robot makes all the difference in the world. And it's a message that is universal. We really don't need words for it. The picture says it all. Yeah. So I'm not sure if there's another flag out there that is so simplistic, really, that offers the same message. And maybe we'll use something from Artemis, that mission. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, happy Earth Day. Thank you for joining us, Heather. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to share this flag with you all.
Thanks for listening to Freedom and Glory, Tales of American Spirit. If today's story moved you, share it with someone who'd appreciate it. Subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find us. And when you're ready for American-made flags and products built to last, visit freedomandglory.com. One flag, a million stories, yours included.